I'm Dolly Bastet, and welcome to Dolly's World. Today, I'm taping at our home, which is the home of the late Grace Auer. And with me, my guest is John Runyon, who is an old friend, and he happens to be executor of Grace Auer's will. And we're going to be talking about her estate, which is up for auction, and all the many beautiful things that she has. So why don't you come along with me? We all know so much about Grace, and yet in a way, we don't know a lot about her. We hear that she was First Lady of East Brunswick, or considered First Lady of East Brunswick. And I personally have always said that if I ever grow up, I would like to be like Grace Auer. Thoughtful, kind, caring.
Yeah, she was all of those things and very much more. I mean, she's the most saintly person I ever met. She had a great faith. Family and community service, and her religion, her faith in God were the three most important things in her life that she dedicated herself 100% to. And the community, of course, is where she's best known for her service. And you know, was a member of the East Brunswick Grange for 73 years. Joined when she was 18 in 1920-something, and that began her life of community service. And Grace was literally a founding member of every single organization of East Brunswick of any continuing interest. She's a founder of the Middlesex County Fair, and president and trustee for many years, and trustee at the time she died still even. She is a founder of the museum. She's one of the founders and a three-time president of the East Brunswick Women's Club. She was one of the founders of the DeVoe Library Association, which was the predecessor of the East Brunswick Library, founder of the Friends of the Library. She was in the Navy League. She was involved in Democratic Party politics. She was vice chairman of the Democratic Party in Middlesex County many years ago.
Gee, I never knew that.
Yeah, and involved in local politics here in East Brunswick many years ago. She got out of politics after her husband died.
She was
really apolitical, but she was always a Democrat, and she was big in the party affairs. And she was in the women's club, the garden club, the last garden club in New Brunswick. She was president of that for many years. She was involved in the East Brunswick Garden Club, the East Brunswick Historical Society. I mean, the list is
endless.
Almost endless. That Grace was not only involved in these organizations, she was usually a founder of them, and for most of them, or almost all of them, she was an officer, if not president, for many years. When she died, she was treasurer of the Historical Society, involved in the museum as an officer. She was a trustee, having just stepped down as president of the Middlesex County Fair, and this is all at 90.
And besides that, she used to bake cakes
almost every day. As you
people.
know, I had lived here for about 3 years.
Right.
And if someone had a birthday or something, almost every day you'd wake up to smell of cake cooking, you know, because Grace didn't sleep a lot. She would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and throw a cake in the oven.
That must go back to early Forum days when you did get up that early.
Yeah, she had the best collection of cake mixes I've ever seen in my life.
You just destroyed it for me. I thought she started from scratch.
Not in the later years. She used cake mixes, but she added her own little touches. You can believe that, especially the icing and that sort of stuff. But she, everybody got a birthday cake, friends and relatives, and it was, she was constantly working. It's amazing that she would maintain these beautiful yards up until the last 2 years or so. She did all the work here. She trimmed the ivy on her hands and knees and raked the lawn. She did it all up until about 2 years ago when she hired somebody to help her out a little bit.
But do you know why? Yeah. That's why she lived so long.
She was amazing.
Because she cared.
She cared. She was incredible.
Tell me a little bit about, it's our home. That's what Grace called it.
Yeah, the property here, which was her home since 1937, she had dubbed Our Home, her first name, A-U-E-R, and then Home, H-O-L-M-E, Our Home, as the warm sort of phrase she used to describe her residence. And it's interesting because she was born right here in this farmhouse, which was known as Lone Pine Farm, in 1910. And when she became engaged, her parents didn't want her to marry. They didn't want her to leave home. They relied on her so much on the farm. And so they came to an agreement that she could get married, but that her husband would have to live there. So for the first 7 years of Grace's marriage, she lived here with her parents in the farmhouse. But then she got real far away, and in 1937, 38, after Grace had put the pressure on them to have her own home, their parents gave her this property 100 feet away from where she was born, and she built a house here with her husband Charlie in 37, 38, and they moved here in 1938 to their own home. But she still didn't leave home. She was still at home because
when you're right
she was
next
100
door,
feet away.
It's a little different.
Exactly, you know. So.
Was this all one piece of property at one time?
Yeah, it was Lone Pine Farm. It was.
How far did it extend?
It extended all the way down Summer Hill Road to Academic, or all the high school property on Summer Hill Road was part of the farm. It extended down Cranberry Road to about where the high school entrance is. It extended across Cranberry Road, and all those apartments over there, and Trinity Presbyterian Church, and that whole area was a part of the farm, and it also went across to the other side. Actually, it would have gone to across Route 18 at one point in time. It was when there used to be a New Jersey 28, when it was just a two-lane road. So but when Grace was born, when she was little, it was just a narrow dirt road here.
It's incredible.
Yeah, because we have a picture in the house of her father in their buggy, you know, on Cranberry Road right in front of the house. It was just a narrow little dirt road when she was born, and up until, well, it wasn't paved even when she was married in 1931. It was still a dirt road.
It's incredible to think that now what has happened.
Exactly. It's grown so much. There's a big highway behind us and around us all. She's like on an island here, so.
We're competing with all the traffic.
Exactly, with the sound. So she saw it change so immensely in her lifetime. But they were very proud of their farm. They worked very hard. She and her husband were going to raise flowers after they retired, but of course she died prematurely. So behind us was a greenhouse. The potting shed is still there as an outbuilding for the house. But after he passed away, then they ripped it down because she wouldn't be able to do that kind of work by herself. So it's sort of sad, but they had planned their retirement to raise flowers and sell them here on the property.
Well, she had a green thumb. That's
she had
for
a
sure.
very green thumb.
Very green thumb.
She didn't know.
John, isn't this an unusual way to divide up an estate? Now, you were an executor of her estate, but you would have thought almost that she would have divided it up between her kin.
Well, as you know, Gracious was a very fair-minded and loving aunt to all her 12 nephews and nieces and her sister, and she felt there was no fair way to do that, to divide these precious things that she collected in 90 years of life. So she provided that everything should be appraised, and then that members of the family could buy things at the appraised value before the auction if they wanted to, and therefore everybody would share in the value of everything. And then what was left, which is quite considerable, some things have been taken, would all be auctioned in public, and they would all share in the money. She just didn't feel there was any way to fairly divide up her possessions, and she was right.
That's true, because you do hear about the infighting in families.
She didn't want any fight. She loved everybody. Grace got along with everybody. Well, everybody not always got along with each other. Grace got along with everyone.
Well, that's because she never said a bad thing about anyone that I can remember, and I've known Grace for years.
Yeah, well, she may have said things about us once or twice, but I don't think about anybody else, Dolly.
Well, that's
no,
different.
that's different.
That's
No, she never did.
Was Grace always a collector?
I assume so. From the early, a lot of her wedding presents, she has a list in the house of everything she got as a wedding present, and I think they started the nucleus of her collection of beautiful things. And of course, over the years, she did a lot of antiquing with her sister Edna and on her own, and then when her parents' household was broken up, she acquired quite a few things from them, so yeah, and her interest was mainly in the Victorian period, although she collected many beautiful things. I always said if it was beautiful, Grace would love it, and it didn't matter how old or how new it was. It was just if she thought it was beautiful and loved it. But so she has many things that are relatively modern, but she also has some really wonderful old things.
I think the greatest thing was that she used everything, though.
Yes, she did. I mean, everything that she had in her home, regardless of its value, at one time or another she used, either for a magnificent dinner party or any kind of entertaining. And she believed in using things. And if something got broke, she would, well, if you use things, things will get broke. That was her attitude.
You were saying when we were having coffee before about what she was using. You were using plastic things now because
Right.
everything was being...
Yeah, when we got things together for the auction, I mean, all of her silverware was sterling and will all be sold, and so I couldn't find a fork or a spoon after they got everything put away. So, I mean, she had beautiful things and she used them.
But you were saying her everyday china.
Oh, her everyday china, yes, her everyday china was Rosenthal from Germany. So,
And I saw it before.
yeah,
and
it's
it
beautiful
really
white,
is
simple white
exquisite.
channel, but it's Rosenthal, you know, it's German porcelain. It's just wonderful, and that's what she had in the kitchen.
I think that's the greatest thing when you collect things, not to put them up to collect dust,
Exactly.
but to use
She used
them. And you really appreciate
Yeah.
what you've got.
Yeah, she had a beautiful collection of silver too. We have a couple pieces here, but
Yeah.
a lot of that she got. They had a fantastic party for their 25th wedding anniversary. Grace and Charlie did, her husband Charlie, and they got an awful lot of silver, because silver wedding anniversary, you know, at that time, and so she had several cabinets full of silver. But these are on the table here, are two prize pieces in her silver collection, which she had added to, and some of this she got from her brother George, but these two are really exquisite pieces. This first one here is probably the oldest piece of silver in her collection and would be the oldest piece in most people's collections. This was made in, it's a chocolate pot or coffee pot. It was made in 1771 in London.
Wow.
And the great thing about it is the pineapple finial
I
on
was just
top.
going to mention
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That means hospitality.
Yeah, well, and the pineapple finials for some reason are extraordinary. Well, the detail, all this was done by hand.
Really?
I mean, this is the days when silversmiths were working by hand. And it is marked here on the side. It has a maker's mark and the year mark and the London. We haven't been able to make out the maker's mark to determine who made it, but the marks clearly show it was made in London in 1771.
Can you
And,
imagine sitting down in the afternoon and having a pot of chocolate?
Yeah, with that, it'd be wonderful.
Yes.
I'll tell you, that's Georgian, 1771, Georgian meaning the period of the King's George, you know.
And these will all be up
Georgia.
for auction too.
Yeah, they'll be up for auction. This will be up for auction. They're praised very high. This is
about that?
probably the most expensive piece of silver in her collection. It's all hand done. It's made by Tiffany, and this stuff it's called repoussé, which means the design is hammered from the inside. How they did this just blows my mind, but it's just incredibly beautiful cup. This came from her brother George, who was a Monsignor who lived in South Carolina, and this was given to him by Hope Island to George Lewis. It was some sort of a challenge cup from the country club. Her brother George was a horseman as well as a prelate in the Catholic Church, and this lady who gave him this left her estate to George when she died, and he had life rights, and he lived on that estate till he died. It had horse stables. It was a wonderful place in Aiken, South Carolina. So that's where this came from, but this type of Tiffany work is so rare and so expensive, and it probably, as I say, it was appraised for $8,000. Whether it will bring $8,000, I have no idea. I thought that was a little high, but it's still a wonderful piece.
Imagine owning it.
I know, but she just had it on a shelf in the closet. I mean, you know, she never pointed it out to anybody or said, "Isn't that wonderful?" I mean, she obviously knew what it was, but it wasn't like.
Grace, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Knowing Grace, though, she probably stuck a few flowers in it from time
From time to time, she would have, yes. Indeed, you know.
Well, before we go to...
But she
what-
didn't.
go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I was getting about the silver and the value of things. Grace, so, you know, it's home. She had a lot of nephews and nieces. She had no children. That's why I'm executive of the estate. But she had a lot of nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews, and she always had toys in the house for them. And along with this magnificent silver like this, she has things like this.
Oh, this is... I was playing with them before.
This is a Tinker Toy set.
And that is really old.
That is
too.
probably one of the original Tinker Toy sets. That she, and all the kids, all her nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews all remember playing with that. And then and another thing she had was, I think this has to be the original box of pickup sticks. It's 4, 5, 6 pickup sticks, and
Yeah.
they're wood. It was made in the United States, and I mean, most pickup sticks were made overseas in the final
look,
analysis.
dice.
Oh, there is something heavier. Someone
Yeah.
said there's some.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Pickup sticks involve dice too.
Did it?
So they're all there. Yeah, I think these are Catalan or what do they call that stuff? Yeah, that old plastic, pre-plastic stuff. Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
really-
I'm not that old.
I understand. But anyway, so she had these wonderful things, but there's so much here for this auction of interest to anyone, really, from the silver to old games and old toys that she had for her nieces and nephews. And so it's going to be an interesting time, a sad one in a way, to see all this dispersed
I
to the
know
wind, but in the positive way of looking at it, it's little pieces of grace floating all over, scattering all over the world. I mean, she was such a wonderful and magnificent person, and this auction will give little pieces of her to so many people.
Well, when you said that to me the other day, that this was so sad, and when you see any estate auction, it makes you wonder. I used to go to them all the time, and it makes you wonder about the lives of the people who live there. And someone said to me, it is sad. And I said, no, it's not. Because everyone can have a tiny piece of their memory,
right,
of Grace, or whose ever auction it is.
Right. Exactly.
And that's kind of a good feeling.
It is.
That it goes on.
It is. That's the best way to look at it. It is indeed. So this is exciting. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I love this.
I think some of her nieces and nephew will be fighting over the pickup sticks and the Tinker toys because they didn't realize they were still here, but it is. So.
Now, in the house, there are two of the most beautiful mirrors that I have ever seen. Tell me a little about them.
Well, one of a lot of Grace's nice things she got through Marion Thomas, who had an antique store
Marion.
up on Route 18. There's a big glass wall in front of her house now, right at the bridge over across the Lawrence Brook into New Brunswick. And that was an antique store in her home, but Marion was in the business for many years. She died about at least 20 years ago. And Marion bought quite a number of things at the estate sale for Sophie Tucker, you know, the last of the Red Hot Mamas.
Oh, yeah.
Vaudeville star. She was on the TV on some of the variety shows when I was a young man, but she was still alive, but she's since been dead for many, many years. Well, in the dining room, excuse me, there's a great big mirror. It's a fabulous mirror that was from the estate sale of when Sophie Tucker's estate was auctioned many, many, many years ago. That's a wonderful mirror. And in the living room, there's a federal mirror, a federal period mirror, and I'm talking around 1800. It's one of those round mirrors with the concave.
Right.
And it has an eagle soaring at the top.
And very ornate.
Very ornate, you know, but would have been typical of, you know, Thomas Jefferson or George Washington or any of those folks. And she got that. Matter of fact, it was in the attic of George's home. And and it was up there and it had fallen to you know, disrepair. And Grace, he gave it to Grace and she brought it up here. And she had it restored by Swain's in Plainfield and had it re-gilded. It's gilded gold, you know, with gold leaf, you know. It's just a wonderful, wonderful mirror and should bring quite a lot of money.
Besides the mirrors, there are many other gorgeous pieces.
Yeah, I mean, there's
knickknacks and collectibles.
There's something here for everyone. I mean, in furniture, she has some magnificent Victorian furniture.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
And it's not really Victorian. I think it's earlier. I think it's a French period, probably around Napoleon III. She has a divan or a settee in the living room that is just wonderful, and it's a
rose velvet.
It has this one I'm talking about has gold leaf on it.
Oh,
it's a fabulous settee, and it should bring well. And she has upstairs. She has a three-piece settee and a armchair and a single individual chair that it's all inlaid wood and great design. And again, I think that's mid-19th century, and that should do very well because it's absolutely spectacular and gorgeous. She has many beautiful pieces of furniture. She has a corner cabinet upstairs in the family room that's round. If you can imagine a round mahogany corner cabinet, which is the most highly praised, highly valued in terms of its praise value of any piece in the house, actually. But it's wonderful. So the furniture is super. But she has many other things. She collected a lot of figurines, so she has a lot of German bisque things and a lot of angels. She was big on angels and Christmas and the holidays, so there are many angels and other figurines of all different types and sorts. The nice thing about Grace is the reason she had so many of these things is she changed this house around at least once a year, and sometimes twice, where she would take all the curtains down and put up a whole different set of curtains. She would put away all the things that were out and put out a whole new group of things to look at.
Well, she did winter, summer, fall,
right,
and that
then
type
Christmas.
of thing. Right.
So at least 3 times a year, like she would put slip covers on for the spring and summer in the living room and have curtains that match the slip covers and all the furniture. I mean, so this house got changed around. So every time I've been coming here for Christmas for over 25 years, and I never saw the same decorations twice. I mean, she always did it. It was incredible. The tree would be different with a different theme. I mean, she loved that holiday. So there's so many different things. That's why she had so much, because the house was never cluttered or you know, it was always she would get up in the middle of the night and change the position of something on the table because she thought it would look better over. She did things like that. So everything was perfect, and so that's why she had so many things, but they were all put away for the most part, and until she switched it around, then you'd see something you hadn't seen in years because she got it out and put it on display for a while, you know.
But you know, even with this perfectionism that she had,
yeah.
I can remember attending a Christmas tea here,
Yeah.
and I was sitting on that dark pink or red velvet
Right.
settee
In the living room.
in the living room, terrified that I was going to spill. We just kind of kept looking at one another thinking,
you don't know this, Dolly, but she had that recovered twice because of some
really?
person who spilled her. I swear to God, I'm not making this up.
God, I hope it wasn't
She had
me.
an affair here one time, and somebody spilled the coffee on it and stained it, so she had to recover it. And about a week later, somebody did the same thing again, and she had to have it recovered again. That's really
I'm
funny.
sorry I brought it up.
It may have been you, Dolly. Luckily, she's not here to remember the circumstances, but that's really funny. No, she had a lot of trouble with that one. I don't know why. In later years, she would put slip covers on a lot, or she would put, during the regular day when nobody was here, she'd put, because she had a grandniece who came here a lot, was a little kid, she would put a towel over it to keep the greasy fingers from staining things, but you know, that's really funny.
Yeah.
Now, she has lots of other great things too, like upstairs there's a candelabra that she got through Marion Thomas that was reported to, and Marion said it was, although we'd have to authenticate it further, was a candelabra that was a centerpiece on the inaugural dinner for Abraham Lincoln. That's the way it's been reported and handed down over the years, but it's a verbal thing. You know, I'm sure it could be documented one way or the other, but it's certainly of that period. It's that old. It's a wonderful candelabra, which hopefully you can get a shot of to show the folks before it leaves the home here. You know, so there are just so many things like that that have that kind of historical significance and that are just wonderful. I hope folks will come by at least to see them.
Well, I know there are a lot of people whose homes are pretty well decorated by this time in their life, but there are a lot of little pieces that can tuck into a corner. My eye was on little footstools. There's one in the living room. So if you miss it after I leave today, John, you know what happened to it.
Yeah.
But it's metal and it's heavy.
It's brass, I think, or bronze or something.
Bronze, one of those.
It is.
And tapestry, hand tapestry.
Yeah, if you'll notice, all the footstools, all the dining room chairs, a number of the other chairs all have needlepoint covering.
Needlepoint, right.
Grace did all of them.
Oh, did she?
All of the
So then
needlepoint that you see on the furniture in the house,
Right.
Grace did.
Well, you know what's fascinating even more so? Because then
guess they
when
call
you
it petit
buy
point,
something, you really have a piece of
You have a
Grace
piece of Grace
Auer's
because she did the
history.
work. I think they call it petit point.
Petit point.
You know, upstairs, for instance, she crocheted a bedspread, a tablecloth, and a few other things. They'll be sold too. These are hand done. It took her the bedspread. Took her years to do. These little pieces.
Yeah.
And then you have to hook them all together.
You have to sew them together.
You know, so, and there's an old quilt there, so people are interested in linens and that sort of
And
thing.
quilts, and there are a load of people that love old linens.
She has boxes full of antimacassars and bureau scarves and things like that. So the linen people will be thrilled with this. A lot of old, wonderful things.
Which, by the way, are coming back according to House Beautiful.
Well, that's good to hear.
You see?
Yeah, but there are many, many other things. It's hard to even remember everything that she has. Flowers, silk and plastic flower. You know, if you have an interest in something, Grace probably has 100 of them.
Also, the outside, some of the statuary and
Yeah, she had many
flower
statues
pots and
things
furniture.
around. They'll be sold at the auction too. The cast iron furniture
That is
that we're
beautiful.
sitting on, and over there, the really old stuff on the right over here. Yeah.
Well, John, I think our time is just about running out,
Yeah.
but thank you so much for your time, because
Thanks.
I know we have had more interruptions this morning
We're a little
with
busy
people
today.
driving in and out of the driveway.
Thanks for
and
coming by, Dolly. It's always a joy to see
It's
you.
always fun to work with you.
Thanks. Love you.
Love you too. Well, my friends, that's it for today. But don't forget, next month, come back and visit with me. We have a great show for you. And in the meantime, take care.
Some of the most vivid memories were that I was sent to school way down to South River, the bottom end of South River, and it was a long, cold hike in the winter day.
Nobody drove you in those days.
No, it was very rare that if it was really very snowy or something, Dad might either come with a wagon or a sleigh to pick us up, but we mostly had to walk back and forth. At 5 years old, I was walking over a mile a day back and forth to school.
Hear that?
My own home is between the East Brunswick Post Office and the Town and Country. I was born in the farmhouse, which is now the Town and Country Real Estate, and I've never lived anywhere else except East Brunswick, so I'm truly an East Brunswick resident all my life.